how do you see that experience that students are currently going through now compared to how you had to do it, and what advice do you have particularly?
Yeah, it's such a tricky one, and I really feel for the students who are in that kind of environment now because like you spend all your final years of school thinking about university and all the fun experiences you're going to have, and you have like generally speaking you have like set ideas of what your uni life is going to look like, and I don't think anybody on the planet would have imagined that their uni life would look like this.
No.
um I would be inclined to say that there must be like a little bit of comfort and solidarity for the people who are going through it now, knowing that everybody else is in the same boat. Not that it makes it any easier, but I one of the distinct things I remember from my own experience, because of the fact that everyone around me was having that typical student experience, and that experience that I had enjoyed myself before my health really declined. I did find that quite isolating, and I did very much feel like I was alone because I was stuck in my bedroom feeling like I was actually about to drop dead sometimes, to be honest, while I was seeing all my friends going out and doing all of these really fun things. Even on social media, you couldn't get away from it because everyone was like posting all their highlights. You know how it is.
Mm.
But yeah, there are so many similarities between what I went through back then, where I was very much I felt very much on my own with it. And I was like teaching my degree to myself because my uni wouldn't make reasonable adjustments. And yeah, what people are going through now, where they're having this experience. But I think something that is a constant for myself back then and what people are going through now is that at the end of the day, you do just have to make the best of it. And it's so much easier said than done, and it's miserable and nobody wants to be doing it. But this is the student experience that we've got, and we've just got to try and do what we can with it and just try and make the most of it, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a challenging one, and it's a tricky one to even attempt to figure out what to do. It's like, obviously you wrote an entire sort of ebook about current sort of activities in terms of studying in lockdown and motivating tips and advice. What are some like good bits that you'd say that people should bear in mind when trying to teach themselves a degree, bearing in mind you had to do almost the same thing 4 years ago?
Yeah, I think the main thing I would say is that when you're sitting down and you're thinking, I've got all of this content ahead of me and I've somehow got to take all of this in and I'm doing it very much alone, it can feel really overwhelming. So I would kind of really take some time to look at the course as a whole and then start breaking things down in a way that makes sense to you, whether that's by modules or whether that's by how much you feel you can realistically study in a day. And even if you feel like you're not doing as much as you think you're supposed to be doing or what you think everybody else is doing, which in itself, like comparison is such an evil thing in lockdown, but just like breaking it down as much as you can. And even if you feel like you're taking baby steps, like doing those baby steps is better than doing nothing at all. And I do think that when you break things down rather than trying to like bulldoze through the whole thing, I think it's easier to find and keep motivation.
Yeah.
Because like you get this like feeling of like ticking things off one thing at a time. And I do think like again it's a really tricky situation and it's really difficult to offer concrete advice, but like I would just say focus on you, find ways of studying and breaking things down that work for you, and just you do you. It doesn't matter what everyone else around you is doing, like you do you.
It's so hard to focus on your own sort of progress, isn't it, when you're getting inundated by everyone else's progress. And I've spoken to people on the podcast before about feeling self-worth when you see so much of things on social media. And I'm sure this was an experience that you had, as you mentioned, when you were at uni, and you felt like you were missing out on that experience so much. And then the fact that social media has such a almost power over your perception of the rest of sort of uni, the rest of the world, the rest of people's social lives, and how much that can impact as well. And it's worrying for sure. It's worrying for sure, especially when, you know, younger people and people who be coming to uni in future years rely so much more on social media. And I just wondered, when you were going through that period, whether it was the worst in first year, second year, whatever, whether it got better, was it things like family and friends connections that helped you personally get through that, or was it something else that was it societies? What was going on?
In a big way, it was my university friends and my housemates. Like, we had a really solid friendship group. They're still some of my favorite people who I still see as much as I can. And like even just chatting absolute rubbish with them, like it really did keep my spirits up. And like to give credit to them, I was during my uni years, I was at a point where I was still very much in denial that I was ill. And the fact that I wasn't actually really communicating with them and they didn't really fully understand what I was going through, despite that, I could tell they were still doing what they could to make sure that I still felt included.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side, so I had my uni friends in real life, but it was also around this time that I first discovered the chronic illness community online. And that has completely transformed my life for the better, because for the first time, I was using social media and I was actually seeing other people like me and people who I could very much relate to. So it started balancing out like the highlights reels that I was seeing elsewhere. And it did kind of show like I'm not alone in this, even though it feels like there were so many times where I felt like I was completely alone and nobody in the universe could possibly understand. When in reality, there were all these people out there who were documenting their own experiences. And in doing that, they were showing me that I wasn't alone and there was a community who understood.